Welcome to Zoe Stories. I wanted revenge, but I ended up becoming someone else. The rain tapped softly against the large bay windows of my apartment, a rhythm that matched the uneasy pulse in my chest. I sat hunched on the edge of my sofa, staring at the laptop screen with a mixture of dread and anticipation. My name is Alex, and until recently, my life had been a predictable loop of office work, quiet weekends, and small personal indulgences that nobody could ever know about. I had a secret, a part of me that existed in the shadows of my everyday identity. I was a cross-dresser, not out of necessity, but as an outlet for something deeper. Something I wasn't even sure I fully understood. It was my rebellion against a world that demanded a rigid definition of who I was supposed to be. By day, I was a marketing analyst at a mid-sized firm in the heart of the city. I navigated meetings, reports, and client calls with precision, wearing the armor of tailored suits and a professional demeanor. But by night, I became someone entirely different. Someone freer. Someone unrecognizable to the people who thought they knew me. This secret life had always been mine alone, until Mia came into the picture.
Mia.
Her name alone sent a shiver down my spine. She wasn't just my girlfriend. She was a force, magnetic and unpredictable, someone who seemed to see the parts of me I didn't even show myself. She was beautiful in a way that demanded attention, with dark, piercing eyes that could strip me bare with a single look, and a confidence that bordered on dangerous. When we first met, I never imagined she would become the axis around which my secret life would suddenly start spinning out of control. Our relationship had begun innocently enough. Coffee dates, late-night movies, quiet walks, but there was always an undercurrent of playfulness in her curiosity. She asked questions that made me nervous, laughed at jokes that seemed darker than they should, and teased me in ways that hit dangerously close to the parts of me I kept hidden. At first, I felt safe, believing my secret life could remain compartmentalized. But Mia had a way of slipping past my defenses, gently nudging at the edges of my hidden desires without ever forcing them into the light. It was a Saturday evening when everything began to unravel. I had planned it meticulously, a night to indulge in my other self, alone in my apartment. My wardrobe had been carefully curated over months. Dresses, heels, wigs, and makeup chosen not just for style, but for the sense of empowerment they gave me. The act of dressing, of transforming, was almost ritualistic. I would stand in front of the full-length mirror for what felt like hours, letting each layer of clothing, each brush of makeup, peel back the ordinary skin I wore in public, revealing something new underneath. Every curve accentuated, every movement refined. I didn't just change appearances. I became someone entirely different, someone bolder, more confident, and strangely more me. But tonight felt different. There was tension in the air, a premonition I couldn't ignore. Mia had been unusually inquisitive over the past week, asking questions about my schedule, noticing little details, even suggesting we play a game of truth and dare. I had laughed it off, pretending I didn't notice, but a part of me shivered. There was a fine line between playful curiosity and dangerous knowledge, and I was about to cross it. I spread my outfit on the bed, a deep burgundy dress, black lace stockings, and a pair of heels that had become my favorite. The sight of them sent a thrill through me, the anticipation of slipping into this identity almost intoxicating. I reached for the wig, running my fingers through its silky strands, and then paused. My reflection caught me in the mirror. Alex, wearing the ordinary mask of an ordinary man. And behind him, Alex in waiting, the other me, the one Mia had yet to meet, the one the world might never accept. As I applied the first brushstroke of makeup, my mind wandered back to the recent betrayal that had seeded this night's dangerous intentions. I wanted revenge, on the office colleague who had humiliated me, on the friend who had laughed at my dreams, on the subtle forces in life that had always made me feel small. I had imagined the perfect plan, to step into this persona, to manipulate, to shock, to prove something. And yet, as the eyeliner traced my eyes, I realized that revenge was no longer the only motive. There was something more, a dangerous curiosity, a desire to explore just how far this transformation could go, how deeply I could lose myself and perhaps find something entirely new in the process. The room was silent except for the rain, and I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. With trembling hands, I slipped into the dress, adjusted the stockings, and finally stepped into the heels. My posture shifted, my gait changed, and the mirror reflected a stranger with my eyes. And yet, staring back at me, there was a confidence I hadn't known I possessed. The thrill of the secret, the forbidden power of transformation, it coursed through me, intoxicating and frightening in equal measure. Then came the final touch, the wig carefully aligned, each strand perfectly placed. I stepped back, examining the reflection that no one in my world had ever seen. It was exhilarating and terrifying. I was no longer just Alex. I was someone else entirely. Someone capable of cunning, of seduction, of manipulation. Someone who could walk through this world cloaked in beauty and anonymity, unseen yet profoundly visible in a way I had never imagined. And just as I was about to savor this forbidden victory, the sound of a key turning in the lock froze me in place.
Mia.
She was home early. My heart leapt into my throat. Every carefully maintained illusion, every whispered fantasy, every secret thought. The risk of exposure was immediate, and I was utterly unprepared. In that instant, I realized the truth. My desire for revenge, my thrill at transformation, my secret life, it was no longer something I could contain. Mia's arrival meant a collision of worlds, a confrontation that I couldn't predict, and a journey into unknown territory. I had wanted revenge, but I was about to discover that sometimes the price of desire is becoming someone you never expected to be. The room felt impossibly small, the rain outside intensifying as if echoing the storm inside me. I took a deep breath, clutching the hem of my dress, wondering if I could step back into the ordinary, if I even wanted to. And then the door opened, and everything changed. The rain had slowed to a drizzle by the time Mia's key clicked in the lock, but the tension in my chest didn't ease. I stood frozen, dressed in the deep burgundy dress, black lace stockings, and the heels I had meticulously chosen. My fingers grazed the edge of the wig, each strand a reminder that I wasn't just Alex tonight. I was someone else, someone daring, someone daringly exposed. Mia's eyes swept over me the moment she stepped inside. Her gaze was sharp, curious, and electric. It wasn't mocking, but it wasn't entirely innocent either. I could feel her silently weighing me, measuring me, and that alone sent shivers down my spine. "Alex," she asked softly, tilting her head. The simple sound of my name in that tone made my heart spike. I swallowed and forced a casual smile. "Hey, you're home early." She chuckled, the sound warm but teasing.
Yeah.
"Thought I'd surprise you.
But wow.
You look different tonight." Different. That word both thrilled and terrified me. My stomach twisted as adrenaline surged through me. Every line of the dress clung to curves I didn't usually reveal. My posture had shifted, hips subtly swaying, shoulders aligned in a confidence I rarely allowed myself. The wig sat perfectly, framing my face, transforming my familiar features into something stranger, more captivating. And now Mia was seeing all of it. I wanted to retreat, to strip away the outfit and slip back into Alex, the safe, ordinary version of myself. But a deeper, more dangerous part of me wanted to stay. To show her. To test her. To test me. "Can I sit?" I asked, gesturing toward the chair across the room, trying to keep my voice steady. She perched herself lightly, crossing her legs. "Of course. But tell me, what's this all about?" Her eyes sparkled with intrigue. I hesitated, every instinct screaming that I could lose control with just a single word. "It's a part of me. Something I explore privately." Her gaze softened slightly. "Explore yourself?" I nodded, feeling heat creep into my cheeks. She wasn't laughing. She wasn't mocking. Instead, she leaned back, giving me space, yet observing with an intensity that made me hyper-aware of every subtle twitch, every micro-expression. The invitation to reveal myself, even partially, made my pulse quicken. Slowly, carefully, I began to demonstrate. First, the dress, I twirled slightly, letting the fabric catch the dim light of the apartment. The sensation of silk against skin, the rhythm of the sway, made my body hum with excitement. Next, the stockings. Sliding them up my legs, I felt a mixture of vulnerability and empowerment. Each movement reminded me how alien this identity felt, yet how undeniably true it was to some hidden part of me. Finally, the wig. Placing it on my head, aligning it perfectly, I saw the transformation complete. I wasn't Alex anymore. At least not entirely. I was Alex's other self, someone bolder, stranger, and infinitely more confident. "You look amazing," Mia whispered, her tone mixing admiration and curiosity. Her words were shockwave through me. Praise and approval, untainted by judgment, made my chest tighten. I had feared ridicule, exposure, or laughter, yet here she was, accepting me, or at least, accepting this version of me. But excitement mingled with fear. What if this acceptance was fleeting? What if the wrong word, the wrong movement, or the wrong glance betrayed the truth? My heart raced, not from vanity, but from the high-stakes thrill of secrecy and revelation intertwined. Hours passed in a blur as I moved carefully around the apartment, testing the heels, adjusting the wig, and rehearsing the small gestures that transformed not just my body, but my presence. Every sound, the rain tapping against the window, the hum of the heater, Mia's soft breathing, heightened my awareness. I was performing a delicate dance between revelation and concealment, each step a risk and each smile a victory. Then came the first real test, stepping outside. Mia suggested a short walk, her hand brushing mine lightly. My breath caught. Going into the world as this person, visible, vulnerable, scrutinized, was the ultimate challenge. Yet, with her by my side, I felt a strange courage. Every reflection in the windows, every passerby's glance, became a test of my poise, my confidence, my ability to inhabit this identity fully. Returning home, I was breathless, dizzy with exhilaration and anxiety. I had survived the first real exposure, and a dangerous part of me craved more. Revenge, thrill, curiosity, all intertwined now. I had started the night wanting to reclaim control over humiliation and rejection, but standing in front of the mirror, heels clicked, wig perfect, eyes shimmering with excitement, I realized the stakes were higher. This wasn't just a game. This was a metamorphosis. And with Mia watching, the line between desire and danger blurred further. I wanted revenge, yes. But I also wanted to explore just how far I could go, how deeply I could become someone else, and what price I would pay if the truth were ever discovered. The night had settled into a tense quiet after our walk. The rain had stopped, leaving the city slick and glimmering under the streetlights. I slipped off my heels as soon as we entered the apartment, but the rest of the outfit remained: dress, stockings, wig. All of it a lingering testament to the other self I had carefully crafted. Mia didn't pressure me to change. Instead, she observed with that same mixture of curiosity and appraisal that made my stomach knot in anticipation. "I never realized," she said slowly, letting the words hang between us, "that you could be like this." Her gaze was steady, unflinching, and in it, I saw both fascination and challenge. Her tone wasn't accusatory, but it carried weight. I felt simultaneously exposed and oddly empowered. It's not easy to explain," I admitted, my voice catching slightly. "It's something I do when I can be completely myself. Or maybe someone else." She tilted her head, a playful smirk forming on her lips. "Someone else, huh? I guess I should be flattered." Flattered. The word made my chest tighten. It wasn't just her acknowledgement, it was the awareness that she could see past the surface, that she might understand the hidden layers of me that no one else ever had. But the thrill of acceptance was tangled with fear. What if she misunderstood? What if her curiosity led her to pry too far, to unravel the carefully constructed persona that I had spent months perfecting? I paced the room subtly, adjusting the hem of my dress and tugging at the wig. Every movement reminded me of the precarious balance I was maintaining between desire and secrecy, between exhilaration and terror. I want to see more, she said suddenly, standing. Her voice was soft, almost teasing. Show me how you really feel in this. My heart leapt. This was no longer just a private ritual. This was a performance under her gaze. My hands shook slightly as I twirled slowly, letting the fabric of the dress flow. The stockings brushed my thighs, the wig shifted perfectly, and I felt a surge of adrenaline. I was vulnerable and powerful all at once, and Mia's eyes drank it all in. You're incredible, she whispered. Her tone was a mixture of admiration, desire, and something I couldn't quite name. That single word, so simple, yet so loaded, made my chest feel tight. Every nerve in my body was alive, buzzing with a mix of fear, excitement, and an almost intoxicating confidence I hadn't felt before. I laughed softly, a sound that was unfamiliar, yet liberating. I'm not sure incredible is the right word, I said, voice catching. It's complicated. Complicated can be fun, she replied, her smile teasing. And in that moment, I realized how dangerously addictive this entire experience was becoming. The act of cross-dressing, once a private indulgence, had transformed into a high-stakes dance of exposure and exhilaration. I moved closer to the mirror, examining myself from every angle. The reflection staring back at me was no longer just a costume. It was a full embodiment of another identity. My shoulders were straighter, my movements more deliberate, and my expression softer, more alluring, yet still unmistakably me. Every detail, the curve of my lips, the arch of my eyebrows, the way the wig framed my face, felt like a key unlocking something I hadn't fully acknowledged before. And yet, anxiety nipped at the edges of my euphoria. What if this identity slipped at the wrong moment? What if Mia ever saw the cracks, the awkwardness in my walk, the way my hands trembled slightly, the fleeting panic when I nearly stumbled in the heels? Every sensation was magnified under her gaze. The tension escalated further when she suggested we play a game of challenges, a teasing idea that blurred lines between playfulness and risk. She handed me a pair of long gloves and asked me to put them on while balancing on the edge of the sofa. My pulse skyrocketed. It was absurd, simple, yet terrifying. The gloves, the position, the awareness that she was watching my every move, it all combined into a heady mixture of fear and thrill. I obeyed, careful with each motion, feeling every fiber of silk against my skin. When I finally balanced on the sofa, she clapped softly, eyes sparkling with amusement.
See?
You're braver than you think.
Brave.
The word resonated in me. In that moment, I realized how much I had underestimated my own capacity for risk, for performance, for inhabiting this other persona. I had thought cross-dressing was just a private indulgence, a secret I could hide from the world. But under Mia's gaze, it had become a proving ground, a test of confidence, resilience, and daring. And yet, the stakes were higher than ever. Every glance, every smile, every subtle shift in posture carried weight. Exposure was only a misstep away. A knock at the door, an unexpected call, even a stray text could unravel the carefully maintained illusion. My pulse raced as I imagined scenarios, each more terrifying than the last. By the time the night deepened, exhaustion mingled with exhilaration. I had navigated the first real tests of public perception, albeit in a small, controlled way, and had survived. But the night had also shown me how fragile this world was. My secret, once comfortably contained, now existed on the edge of discovery. And the thrill of that danger, the intoxicating mix of power and vulnerability, was something I couldn't resist. As Mia finally moved closer, resting her hand lightly on mine, I realized the truth. The journey I had begun for revenge and curiosity had evolved into something more profound. This wasn't just about retribution anymore. It was about exploration, identity, and the seductive danger of becoming someone else entirely, someone who could wield both allure and secrecy like a weapon. And in that quiet, rain-soaked apartment, I understood that the next steps would be even more daring, the stakes higher, and the line between Alex and his other self thinner than ever. The apartment was quiet now, the storm outside a soft murmur against the windows. I had just returned from our short walk, exhilarated by the attention and the thrill of inhabiting this other self in the world, yet my nerves were frayed, my pulse still racing. Mia sat on the sofa, watching me carefully, her gaze sharp and assessing, and I could feel the weight of her eyes on my every movement. Every slight misstep, every twitch, every tremor in my voice felt magnified, as though she could see the invisible threads of my secret life woven into my skin. I moved toward the wardrobe, my heels clicking softly on the wooden floor, and my heart jumped when I heard the faintest sound behind me, a whisper of movement, like someone shifting in the hallway outside my apartment. I froze, my body taut with sudden fear. It was probably nothing, just a neighbor coming home late, or maybe the wind rattling the window. But my mind spun with possibilities. A visitor, an unannounced arrival, Mia suddenly suspecting more than she should. Every scenario was a risk, every one of them a threat to the carefully constructed persona I had spent hours perfecting. "I'm going to grab a drink," I said, forcing casualness into my voice. The simple act of walking across the room felt heavy, calculated, each step in the heels a test of balance and poise. My reflection in the hallway mirror caught my eye. Alex, yes, but draped in silk and lace, every movement radiating a confidence I wasn't sure I truly felt. I could feel the adrenaline thrumming through my veins, every nerve ending on alert. Mia's voice called softly, "Careful with the heels. Don't fall." Her words were teasing, but I could detect an undertone, attention, scrutiny, and perhaps even subtle challenge. She wasn't just watching me. She was testing me, seeing how far I would go, how well I could navigate this precarious line between exposure and concealment. I returned with the drink, and as I turned toward the sofa, a sudden loud knock echoed through the apartment. My heart leapt into my throat. Mia froze as well, her eyes widening slightly. "That's weird. Who could that be?" she asked, voice tight but curious. I swallowed hard, forcing a calmness I didn't feel. "Probably a neighbor. Maybe maintenance. I'll check." Each step toward the door felt like crossing a minefield. The heels made subtle, echoing sounds on the floorboards, each click announcing my presence. I reached the door, hand hovering over the lock, mind racing through every worst-case scenario. What if it was someone coming to deliver a package just as I was in full cross-dressing attire? What if Mia's curiosity had somehow tipped the balance, and someone else was about to see this secret I had guarded for so long? I opened the door slowly. Nobody. Just a small package on the floor. Relief surged through me, and I bent to pick it up, feeling my knees buckle slightly in the heels. Mia's soft laugh echoed from behind me. "You really are delicate in those," she teased. I could feel the flush rising in my cheeks, part embarrassment, part thrill. Returning to the sofa, I settled down carefully, aware of how every movement exposed me, made me vulnerable. Mia's gaze followed me, warm yet evaluative. "You know," she said, leaning forward slightly, "I think this side of you, it's incredible. But it's also dangerous." Her words struck a chord. Dangerous. That word had never felt so real. The risk of exposure wasn't just hypothetical anymore. It had shown itself in that knock, in the heartbeat of fear that had shot through me when I thought someone else might see me. And yet, the thrill of that danger, the awareness that I was walking a high wire between secrecy and revelation, was addictive. I wrapped my fingers around the edge of my dress, feeling the silk against my skin, and let my mind wander to all the possibilities ahead. Each risk, each moment of exposure, had the potential to unravel me, or to reveal a part of myself I had kept hidden even from me. The idea that I could be caught, humiliated, or misunderstood was terrifying. Yet, paradoxically, it made the allure of this other self stronger, more magnetic. Mia's voice broke through my thoughts. "Do you enjoy this?" she asked softly, almost whispering. Her question wasn't accusatory. It was probing, intimate. I hesitated, considering how to answer. The truth was complicated. Yes, I loved the thrill, the transformation, the power and vulnerability intertwined. But yes, I also feared judgment, rejection, and the collapse of the carefully constructed boundaries that protected me. Yes and no, I admitted finally. It's exhilarating, but it's terrifying too. She smiled knowingly, her fingers brushing lightly over mine.
Good.
That's the point, isn't it? To feel it all, to live on the edge, to see what happens when the ordinary world doesn't recognize the person you've become. I nodded, feeling the tension in my chest ease slightly, replaced by a strange confidence. She understood, or at least she accepted, the dangerous game I was playing. And yet, the night had reminded me how delicate this balance truly was. One knock, one misstep, one misjudged word could destroy everything I had built tonight. The rest of the evening passed in a careful dance. I moved slowly, each gesture deliberate, each step a test of composure. Every glance from Mia carried weight. Every reflection in the mirror reminded me of the duality I now inhabited. Alex, the ordinary man, and Alex's other self, the bold, alluring persona that had begun to take on a life of its own. By the time the night drew to a close, I was exhausted but exhilarated. I had navigated the first real close call, tested the boundaries of risk and exposure, and survived. But the experience had taught me something crucial. This path I had chosen, this flirtation with transformation, secrecy, and danger, was more perilous than I had imagined. And the deeper I went, the harder it would be to return to the safety of Alex. As Mia finally moved to her side, her hand resting lightly on mine, I realized that the journey ahead would demand every ounce of courage, every shred of composure, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. I wanted revenge, yes, but the price of that desire and the intoxicating thrill of becoming someone else was just beginning to reveal itself. The quiet after the knock lingered, but it was replaced by a different kind of tension, a pulse that ran through my veins, reminding me that this other self was no longer just a game. Every glance in the mirror, every flicker of movement, every brush against my dress or wig carried weight. I was inhabiting this persona more fully than I had ever allowed myself before, and the thrill was intoxicating, yet terrifying. Mia moved closer, settling herself on the edge of the sofa with a curiosity that was almost predatory. She tilted her head, examining me like one might inspect a delicate work of art. "You know," she said softly, "the way you carry yourself, it's different. Not just in appearance. You feel different." Her words sent a shiver down my spine.
Different. Yes.
Stronger. More confident. Yet exposed, fragile, and completely vulnerable. I had always thought of cross-dressing as a private indulgence, something confined to the shadows of my apartment. But with her watching, the experience had shifted into something raw, intimate, and undeniably potent. I adjusted the wig, brushing a strand carefully into place, aware of how every motion could be scrutinized. The heels, once a simple accessory, now made each movement deliberate, commanding attention while testing my balance. My reflection in the mirror was no longer just a disguise. It was a persona that demanded presence, demanded recognition, demanded power. "I want to see everything," Mia whispered. "Show me all the little details, all the ways you transform." Her request was both thrilling and frightening. The process of dressing, of becoming, had always been private, sacred. Now it was performative, charged with the electricity of potential discovery. I began slowly, demonstrating the small, subtle shifts in posture, the delicate tilt of the head, the way the hips swayed when I walked across the room. Each movement was a revelation, a testament to the power of transformation, and yet each step carried the risk of exposure. As I worked, I felt a deep, almost dizzying connection between my physical transformation and the emotional one. Every brushstroke of makeup, every adjustment of stockings or heels, reshaped not just how I looked, but how I felt. Confidence surged, mingled with fear, desire, and an addictive sense of liberation. Mia's gaze was like a mirror reflecting my internal duality. Alex, the man who walked through life with caution, and the other me, bold, sensual and untethered. The emotional stakes intensified when she asked me to explore more than just the physical. "What do you feel when you're like this?" she asked. "Is it just fun or something deeper?" I hesitated, caught between honesty and instinctive self-protection. The truth was complex. Yes, it was fun. But it was also a revelation of hidden parts of myself that had never seen the light of day. A confrontation with desire, vulnerability, and power all rolled into one. "It's complicated," I admitted finally. "It's liberating, exciting, but also frightening. It makes me aware of things I didn't know about myself." She nodded slowly, a knowing smile playing on her lips. "That's exactly it. The danger, the thrill, the exposure. That's what makes it real. That's what makes it powerful." Her words hit me like a lightning bolt. The thrill of the forbidden, the intoxicating mix of fear and desire, wasn't just a byproduct. It was the essence of this transformation. Each element of my persona, from the wig to the dress to the carefully calculated movements, was amplified by the stakes. The higher the risk of exposure, the more alive I felt. And then came the first symbolic moment that marked the depth of this journey. I reached for a small hand mirror, holding it at an angle to examine my reflection from every perspective. The other me stared back, eyes glimmering with excitement, lips curved with confidence, posture perfect, every detail meticulously arranged. And yet, there was a fragility beneath it all, a tension that whispered that the illusion was delicate, precarious, and at any moment could shatter. As I turned the mirror toward Mia, I felt a rush of both fear and exhilaration. She studied the reflection carefully, eyes widening slightly, lips parting in a subtle gasp. "You look incredible," she breathed. "But there's something else. I can see it. The part that's still Alex. The part that's scared, uncertain, human." Her observation cut through me, exposing a vulnerability I hadn't allowed anyone to witness. And yet, it was strangely comforting. To be seen, truly seen, was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. The duality of my existence, the person I was and the person I had become, had never felt so real, so palpable. We spent the next hour in a delicate balance of exploration and play. I experimented with movements, gestures, and expressions, each one revealing another layer of this other self. Mia encouraged me, guided me, and observed with a keen intensity that made every action feel like a performance on a stage where the audience knew more than I did. By the end of the night, exhaustion mingled with exhilaration. My body ached from the heels, my fingers trembled from adjusting the wig, and my mind raced from the emotional roller coaster of exposure, excitement, and fear. Yet, beneath it all, there was a growing certainty. This journey was irreversible. The thrill of transformation, the allure of danger, the intoxicating mix of vulnerability and power, it had claimed a part of me that could never be returned. And as I glanced at Mia, a dangerous thought flickered through my mind. I had started this night wanting revenge, wanting control over the humiliation and betrayals of the past.
But now,
I was beginning to wonder if the true transformation wasn't just physical or performative. Perhaps the real change was in me, Alex. The man who had sought retribution. The man who had feared exposure. The man who had finally discovered what it meant to become someone else entirely. By now, the apartment felt smaller, tighter, as though the walls themselves were aware of my secret. Every shadow seemed to hold a possibility of discovery. Every sound, Mia's soft breathing, the hum of the heater, the distant murmur of the city outside, magnified in my mind. My heels clicked softly on the floor as I paced, each step a careful negotiation between poise and precarious balance. Mia watched me, her expression unreadable but intensely focused. "You're tense," she observed, leaning forward slightly. "I can see it. You feel every movement, every sound, like the world is watching you." I swallowed hard, acutely aware of the truth in her words. I could feel the duality within me. Alex, the cautious man, and the other self, poised, seductive, exposed. The thrill of transformation pulsed through me, but so did the fear. Fear of being seen, fear of judgment, fear that this fragile illusion could shatter at any moment.
Show me again, she said softly.
Walk, move, act as yourself. As her. The request was simple, yet perilous. To perform fully, knowing she could see every flaw, every tremor, every hesitation, it was a high-wire act without a safety net. I nodded, inhaling deeply, and began to move. My dress swayed perfectly, the wig framed my face flawlessly, and my posture radiated confidence. Yet beneath the surface, my hands shook slightly, a tremor I hoped she would notice. Halfway through, the sound of the elevator dinged in the hallway. My heart jumped, pounding against my ribs. A visitor? A neighbor? Maintenance? Every instinct screamed to freeze, to hide, to abandon this persona and retreat to Alex's safe familiarity. Mia's eyes flicked to the door, a faint smile playing on her lips, almost teasing. "Do you want to see who it is, or keep performing?" she asked, her tone both playful and dangerous. The risk was electric. To reveal myself fully now, caught in this vulnerable, transformative state, was both terrifying and thrilling. I took a calculated step toward the door, balancing carefully in my heels, and peeked through the peephole. Nobody. Relief surged, but the adrenaline lingered, keeping every nerve on edge. Returning to the room, I realized something crucial. This wasn't just about cross-dressing, or thrill, or even revenge. It was about power, control, and surrender all at once. The act of becoming someone else, of walking the line between exposure and secrecy, had reshaped something fundamental within me. Mia moved closer, her fingers brushing lightly against mine, a contact that sent sparks of both fear and excitement through my body. "You're incredible," she whispered. "But you're still scared, aren't you?" I nodded, unable to hide the truth. The fear was intoxicating. It sharpened every sense, heightened every feeling, and made the transformation feel more real, more dangerous, more alive. And then the real test came, an unexpected phone call from a neighbor, ringing through the apartment. My pulse spiked. Mia's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of surprise passing over her features. I hesitated, caught between answering and remaining in character. The phone vibrated again, insistent, loud. My hands shook as I picked it up, balancing in the heels, the dress clinging to every curve. "Hello," I said, my voice a careful blend of Alex and the other persona. The neighbor's voice was casual, oblivious to the storm of identity and risk swirling within me. "Hey, sorry to bother, but did you leave your window open? Just wanted to check." Relief surged, mingled with lingering tension. My grip on the phone tightened slightly, the other persona trembling at the near exposure. Mia's gaze never left me. She was silent, watching, and I could feel the unspoken acknowledgement, the thrill, the risk, the exhilaration. After the call ended, I sank onto the sofa, heart still racing. My legs ached from the heels, my fingers tingled from the tension, and yet a deep, intoxicating satisfaction settled over me. I had navigated the night's first major threats, pushed my limits, and survived. "You're amazing," Mia whispered again, brushing a hand lightly over my arm. "Not just for the look, but for this. For handling it all." I felt a flush of pride mixed with vulnerability. She had witnessed both the persona and the fear, the power and the fragility. And in that dual acknowledgement, I felt a dangerous exhilaration. This wasn't just play. This was transformation. By the time the night ended, I was exhausted, emotionally spent, yet electrified. Every movement, every glance, every near exposure had carved away the ordinary layers of Alex, revealing someone bolder, more complex, more alive. The stakes had never felt higher, and the thrill had never felt more intoxicating. I realized that the journey ahead was far from over. There would be more risks, more revelations, more moments when the line between Alex and the other self blurred dangerously. The thrill of danger had become a craving, and the allure of transformation a force I could no longer resist. As I gazed at the mirror one last time that night, adjusting the wig and smoothing the dress, I understood the truth. I had started this night seeking revenge, control, and curiosity, but I was leaving it forever changed. The other self had claimed a part of me, and the question now was whether I could ever return to the life of Alex alone. The storm outside had cleared, but inside me, the tempest of desire, fear, and transformation raged on. And somewhere deep down, I knew the next steps would push me further than I had ever imagined, with consequences I could not yet foresee. Perfume, the memory of Mia's eyes studying me like I was something both beautiful and dangerous. I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind a blur of half-remembered sensations. The thrill of transformation had been like fire, intoxicating and uncontrollable. Yet now, in the light of day, I felt exposed, raw. The mirror across the room reflected traces of last night, a wig resting on the dresser, a tube of lipstick lying open beside the sink. Each object was a silent confession of the person I had become. Mia appeared at the doorway, dressed casually in an oversized sweater, her hair pulled into a messy bun. But her gaze, sharp, knowing, reminded me that she had seen everything. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked softly. I shook my head, trying to steady my voice. "It's just everything feels different. Like I'm still half in last night." She smiled faintly, stepping closer. "That's because you are. You don't just step out of something like that. Once you've crossed that line, you can't pretend it never happened." Her words struck deep. I looked away, focusing on the wig, the lipstick, the remnants of the person I had been just hours ago. "Maybe I went too far," I murmured. "It was supposed to be just a game." "Was it?" she asked, her tone light but probing. "Because it didn't look like a game last night. It looked like freedom." The word hung in the air, freedom, a truth and a threat wrapped in one. I felt the tension between us grow thicker, more charged. Mia moved closer, her presence filling the room. She picked up the wig delicately, letting the strands slip through her fingers like liquid gold. "You were beautiful," she said quietly. "But it wasn't just the makeup or the dress. It was something else, something you let out." Her words hit like a jolt of electricity. My pulse quickened. There was no accusation in her voice, only curiosity, and something deeper, something dangerous. I tried to deflect. "You make it sound like I'm someone else." She smiled slowly. "Maybe you are. Maybe that's the point." The silence that followed was heavy. I wanted to argue, to deny it, to reclaim the certainty of Alex, but deep inside, I knew she was right. Something had changed. I could still feel that version of me from last night, the one who had moved gracefully in heels, who had faced danger with trembling confidence, who had felt more alive than ever before. "I don't know what you want me to say," I whispered. Mia set the wig down gently and looked at me with an expression that was both kind and calculating. "You don't have to say anything. I just want you to understand something. Last night wasn't an accident. You've been building toward that moment for a long time. I just helped you see it." Her words were unnerving, almost prophetic. I wanted to argue, to reclaim control, but a part of me knew she was right. The thrill, the secrecy, the danger. It had all been simmering beneath the surface, waiting for someone like her to draw it out. Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. My entire body froze. Mia's eyes flicked toward me, a small, knowing smile tugging at her lips. "Expecting someone?" she asked. I shook my head, panic rising in my chest.
"No.
"Nobody comes this early." She motioned for me to stay put as she went to the door. I could hear muffled voices, a neighbor, perhaps, or the landlord. I strained to listen, heart pounding, terrified that whoever it was might somehow see inside, might glimpse the evidence of what I had become. When Mia returned, she was holding a small envelope. "Just mail," she said casually. But her eyes were bright, almost amused. "Relax. No one saw anything." I exhaled shakily, the tension draining from my body. But the moment of fear had left a mark. It had shown me how fragile this secret really was. One unexpected knock, one curious neighbor, and everything could unravel. Mia sat beside me again, placing a reassuring hand on my knee. "You know," she said softly, You looked terrified just now. But there was something else in your eyes, too. A thrill. You liked the danger. I opened my mouth to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. Because she was right. The adrenaline that had surged through me when the knock came hadn't just been fear, it had been excitement. She leaned in closer, her voice a whisper against my ear. That's the part of you that's going to destroy Alex. The part that loves this. I shivered, her words echoing in my mind like a prophecy. She was right again. The part of me that had once only dressed in secret, in silence and shame, had now tasted something intoxicating. Validation, visibility, danger. And that part wasn't going to go quietly. As the morning light shifted across the room, I realized that this was only the beginning. The transformation I had thought was temporary, playful, had ignited something much deeper. The line between revenge and revelation was blurring, and I wasn't sure which side I wanted to stand on anymore. The stage lights burned hot and golden. The crowd's roar was a wave crashing in my ears. Somewhere behind the curtains, I could still hear my sister's last words before the show started. You've become more than just a replacement. You've become her. The words echoed in my mind as I stared at my reflection one last time. The mirror showed me a woman, poised, elegant, breathtaking. My sister's old wig framed my face perfectly, cascading in golden waves that glittered under the dressing room light. My dress, a shimmering sapphire gown, hugged every curve I didn't used to have. My lips were painted in the exact shade she always wore on competition days. It should have been her moment, but now it was mine. The host's voice thundered through the speakers. Next up, our final contestant, the stunning newcomer, Zoe. That name still felt strange. A part of me wanted to look around to see who he was calling, but no one else moved. This was me. I was Zoe. My legs trembled as I stepped onto the stage. The blinding lights made it impossible to see the audience, but I could feel their presence. The cameras flashing, the judges watching, the air thick with expectation. The music began, the same song my sister once danced to before her accident. I took a breath and began to move. Every step, every flick of my wrist, every sway of my hips, it wasn't just performance anymore. It was release. All the confusion, the shame, the panic I'd felt at the start, it melted into rhythm. I moved not as someone pretending to be a woman, but as someone who had finally found peace in her skin. The applause grew louder with each motion. The song reached its peak. And as the final note hit, I dropped into the last pose, heart pounding, breath caught, eyes glistening. For a long moment, silence. Then, thunderous applause. I felt tears blur my vision as I smiled. The crowd rose to its feet, cheering, whistling, shouting my name. Zoe.
Zoe. Zoe.
It felt unreal. After the show, I returned backstage, dizzy from emotion. My sister was there, sitting in her wheelchair, tears in her eyes. She didn't say anything at first, just reached for my hand. I saw you out there, she whispered. You weren't pretending. You were you. Her words hit me harder than any applause could. I fell to my knees, hugging her tightly, both of us crying. I didn't mean for it to go this far, I said between tears. But it changed me. I can't go back now. She smiled faintly. Then don't. The following weeks were a blur. The video of my performance went viral. The world didn't know my secret. They just saw a new beauty queen with confidence and grace. Brands reached out. Modeling agencies called. My sister, though quiet about it, supported me at every step. But inside, I was still trying to understand who I had become. One morning, while getting ready for an interview, I looked in the mirror again. No makeup this time, just me, simple, soft, serene. The reflection didn't scare me anymore. I smiled. Maybe I'd started as someone wearing my sister's wig to fill a void. But somewhere along the line, that wig didn't just change how I looked, it changed who I was. And maybe, just maybe, this was who I was meant to be all along. Epilogue: The Beauty Queen. Months later, I stood backstage again, but this time, not as a contestant. I was a guest judge at the same pageant where it all began. My sister sat beside me, radiant, proud, and healthy again. As the spotlight fell on the next performer, a nervous young girl adjusting her wig, I smiled. It wasn't just about beauty or competition anymore. It was about transformation, courage, and finding yourself where you least expect it. I leaned toward my sister and whispered, "Funny, huh? How one wig changed everything." She laughed softly. "No, little sister. You did." And as the applause filled the hall once more, I finally understood. My story didn't end with becoming someone else. It began when I finally accepted who I'd become. Life after the pageant was a whirlwind. Interviews, cameras, sponsorships. Everywhere I went, people saw Zoe, the beauty queen who captured hearts overnight. But behind that flawless image was still me, the boy who once stumbled into a transformation he never asked for. Every morning, I'd wake up and stare at the vanity mirror. Lipstick stains, false lashes, perfume bottles, all reminders of the identity I had built. Sometimes I'd touch the wig stand, now holding not one, but 3 custom-made wigs designed for my signature look. I'd whisper to the reflection, "Who are you, really?" And every time, the reflection whispered back with a quiet, knowing smile, "I am you."
There was peace in that now.
One afternoon, while visiting my sister, I found her sitting outside in the garden, sketching dresses. She had started designing again, her passion rekindled. "You know," she said without looking up, "I used to dream of being on that stage again. But now, seeing you out there, it feels like my dream just found a new body." I smiled faintly. "Do you ever regret it? That you pushed me into this?" She looked up, eyes soft but sharp. "I didn't push you, Zoe. I just opened a door. You walked through it." Her words lingered in the quiet breeze. That night, I received an invitation. International Beauty Summit, Paris. They wanted me to represent the new wave of authentic femininity. The irony wasn't lost on me. Authenticity had once been my biggest fear. Now it was my identity. When I arrived in Paris, something in me shifted. Maybe it was the air, thick with art, fashion, and endless possibilities. Or maybe it was the way people treated me, not as someone pretending, but as someone real. I met designers, journalists, and even a few pageant legends who told me how inspiring my story was. None of them knew the truth, that beneath the designer gowns and perfect makeup, I was still the boy who once wore his sister's wig as a joke. But somehow, that truth didn't matter anymore. Because now, the woman they saw, Zoe, was just as real as the person I used to be. One evening, during a quiet photo shoot at the Eiffel Tower, the photographer suddenly asked, "Zoe, can you give me the look of someone who's finally at peace with herself?" I didn't have to act. I tilted my chin slightly, the wind catching my hair, the lights of Paris glowing behind me. For the first time in my life, I felt it, not pretending, not performing, just being. And when the flash went off, I realized something profound. I wasn't hiding behind a wig anymore. I had become the woman I was always afraid to see in the mirror. A few months later, back home, I opened a new package, my first magazine cover. Across the top in bold letters, Zoe, the face of courage, change, and beauty. My sister framed it and hung it in our living room. When I saw her looking at it one evening, she turned to me and said, "You know, people think that wig turned you into a beauty queen. But it wasn't the wig." I smiled. "Then what was it?" She touched her heart. "It was you finally seeing the beauty I always saw." I stood there, silent, overwhelmed. Maybe she was right. The story began as a mistake, a desperate attempt to help her heal, a disguise to fill her place. But it ended as something else entirely. A rebirth. That night, I placed the golden wig, the original one that started everything, back on its stand. Underneath it, I put a small note. For the one who taught me that beauty isn't about who you were, it's about who you become. And as I turned off the light, I realized something beautiful. The world might know me as Zoe, the beauty queen. But I knew myself as something far deeper, a soul that dared to step beyond fear and found her truth in the unlikeliest way possible. Because sometimes it only takes one wig to change, not just how the world sees you, but how you see yourself. The lights of the city blinked through the hotel window like 1,000 watchful eyes. Zoe sat before the vanity, makeup perfectly set, her pageant crown glimmering beside her. Tomorrow was supposed to be her final performance, a charity gala broadcast live, where she'd officially pass on her title. But tonight, her reflection looked unsettled. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mia. "Mia, I know everything." Her blood ran cold. For a moment, she thought it was a prank, some old contact, someone digging up Ethan's past. But then came another message. "Mia, meet me in the lobby. Now." Zoe's heart hammered.
Mia.
The woman she once loved. The reason she'd started down this path, revenge, anger, pride. And yet now, facing her again after everything, all that rage felt meaningless. She hesitated, staring at the wig stand. For months, that golden hair had been her mask, her shield. Now it felt like a question. Do I face her as Zoe or Ethan? Her trembling fingers reached for the wig. Slowly, she placed it over her styled hair, adjusted the curls, and took one deep breath. If Mia was going to see her, she would see all of her. The elevator ride felt endless, mirrors on all sides, trapping her in her own reflection. By the time the doors slid open, her pulse was roaring in her ears. Mia stood near the fountain in the hotel lobby, her expression unreadable. She looked different, older, sharper. The same confidence that had once captivated Ethan now radiating as quiet fury. When she saw Zoe, her lips parted in shock. "So it's true," she whispered.
Zoe swallowed hard.
"Mia? Don't." Her voice cracked. "Don't say my name like that." The air between them felt heavy, every word they didn't say pressing down harder. Zoe finally spoke, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." Mia gave a dry laugh. "You mean pretending to be someone else? Winning my pageant contacts? Living this?" She gestured at Zoe's dress. "This fantasy? It wasn't about you." Zoe's voice rose. "At first it was revenge, yes. I wanted to make you feel what you made me feel. Small, invisible, replaceable. But then what?" Mia snapped. Zoe's voice broke. "Then I found myself." Mia blinked, startled by the vulnerability in her tone. "Found yourself?" Zoe nodded slowly. "This isn't an act anymore. When I'm her, when I'm me, I finally feel whole. It's not about pretending. It's about existing." Silence. The fountain's gentle splash filled the space where words couldn't reach. Mia looked at her long and hard, and for a brief moment, Zoe saw something flicker behind her eyes. Not anger. Not disgust. Recognition. "You always had that fire," Mia said softly. "Even when you were Ethan. You just never believed in it." Zoe's throat tightened. "And you? Did you ever believe in me?" Mia's eyes shimmered.
Once.
"But I think I loved the version of you that never existed." That cut deep. They stood there, two versions of the same story, one chasing revenge, the other chasing herself, both realizing they had lost what truly mattered long ago. "I didn't come here to destroy you," Zoe whispered. "I came to stop hiding." Mia looked away, tears threatening. "Then maybe you finally did." She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "But the world isn't kind, Zoe. People will find out. They'll tear you apart." Zoe lifted her chin, steady now. "Let them. For once, I have nothing left to hide." For a long moment, Mia just stared at her, then turned and walked away, her heels echoing against the marble floor. Zoe watched her go, her chest heavy, yet strangely light. The revenge she once craved had melted into something pure, truth. But as she turned to leave, a camera flash blinded her. A journalist stood by the lobby doors, camera raised, eyes wide with shock. "Oh my God," he murmured, staring at his screen. "Zoe is a man?" The words hit like a gunshot. Heads turned. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. In seconds, her secret, her truth, was no longer hers. Zoe froze, trembling as people whispered, pointed, filmed. And then she smiled. It wasn't bravado. It wasn't denial. It was peace. She looked into the nearest camera, tears glistening under the golden lights, and said softly, "I'm not pretending anymore." The flash went off again, brighter this time. Zoe closed her eyes, standing tall, every ounce of shame burning away into something fierce, defiant, and free. The lobby erupted with noise, questions, gasps, chaos, but she didn't move. For the first time, she wasn't running from who she was. And as the scene froze in that perfect moment, lights, cameras, and truth colliding, one thing became clear. Ethan's revenge was over. Zoe's life had just begun. The next morning, the world had changed, and so had she. Zoe woke up to the blinding light of her phone. Hundreds of notifications, dozens of missed calls. Her face was everywhere. Headlines screamed across every news outlet and gossip blog. Beauty queen's secret exposed. The woman who wasn't. Zoe, the biggest scandal in pageant history. Was it all a lie? She scrolled through trembling hands, her heart thundering in her chest. The pictures were everywhere, her standing in the lobby, eyes glistening, whispering to the camera. That one line had gone viral. "I'm not pretending anymore." Some praised her courage. Others mocked, ridiculed, dissected her every movement, every interview request, every comment thread. Every whisper now questioned who she was or what she was. Her phone buzzed again. A text from her sister. "Sister, are you okay? Don't go online. Come home." Zoe stared at the screen, numb.
Come home.
But where was home now? She pulled herself out of bed, dragging her reflection toward the mirror. The wig sat untouched on the stand, and for a long moment, she just stared at it. That golden crown of lies, or maybe of truth. When she finally put it on, something in her chest broke and healed at the same time. Her sister's apartment was silent when she arrived. Curtains drawn, coffee cold on the table. Her sister stood by the window, phone in hand. "Zoe," she whispered, turning around. "You're all over the news." "I know. They're saying the sponsors pulled out. The pageant board wants a statement." "I don't have one," Zoe said flatly. "Not yet." Her sister's voice shook. "Then what will you do?" Zoe looked out the window, cars rushing by, people moving, life going on. "For once, I'll stop hiding. No more lies. No more pretending." Her sister's eyes filled with tears. "They won't understand. People will hate you." Zoe smiled faintly. "They already do. But they'll also see me." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then her sister whispered, "You're brave, you know that?"
Zoe looked down. "No."
"I'm just tired of being afraid." She sat by the vanity, adjusting her lipstick. Each stroke felt like armor, each shimmer of gloss a shield. She stared at her reflection, steady and unflinching. "Ethan was a ghost," she murmured. "Zoe's real." Her sister came behind her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Then go be her." That evening, Zoe made her decision. She dressed carefully, a simple white dress, the same one she'd worn when she first entered the competition. No jewelry, no glitter, just her truth. Then she opened her camera and hit record. "Hi," she said softly, her voice steady despite the tremor beneath it. "You all think you know my story. Maybe you saw the pictures. Maybe you heard the whispers." She took a deep breath. "Yes, I was born someone else. Yes, I kept a secret. But what I found wasn't a lie. It was me." Her voice grew stronger. "I didn't steal a crown. I didn't trick anyone. I became someone who found courage in what was once shame. And if you can't see that, that's okay. Because I see myself now." She ended the video there, hands trembling as she hit upload. Within minutes, the post exploded online. Thousands of comments poured in, some cruel, some kind. But one stood out. "Mia, you were always beautiful. I just wasn't brave enough to see it." Zoe's breath caught. Her eyes stung. She typed a single reply. "Zoe, neither was I. Until now." Then she closed her phone and stepped onto the balcony, the wind catching her hair. Cameras would find her again soon. The world would keep shouting, judging, debating. But she didn't care. She leaned against the railing, gazing at the city lights, her crown of chaos and freedom, and whispered into the night. Ethan wanted revenge. Zoe found herself. And just then a knock at the door. Her sister's voice echoed from the hallway.
Zoe?
You need to see this. Zoe turned, heart racing, the night air humming with anticipation. She opened the door and froze. Standing there, holding an envelope marked with a pageant board seal, was a courier.
For Zoe, he said.
She tore it open. Her hands shook as she read the words inside. You are hereby invited to represent our organization at the Global Equality Summit. We believe your story deserves to be told. Zoe looked up, stunned. Her sister gasped behind her. The scandal had turned into something else, something powerful. Zoe exhaled slowly, tears forming in her eyes. Maybe the world hadn't ended after all. Maybe it had just begun. She smiled, soft, serene, unstoppable, and whispered one last time to herself. I wanted revenge, but I ended up becoming someone else.